All right, another garden tour for an update here. This is the end, well, middle to end of July. I've got my sunflowers here that are blooming. One of the first big blooms had this weird little guy in the middle. I've never seen that before, where it like shoots out the middle. But we're getting lots of little offshoot buds that are coming, so I'm real excited for those to fill out. The strawberries, those are all done. Those are mostly June berries. Sorry, there's a tractor in the background. It's kind of loud. Got a couple that have little flowers, but those really won't amount to much of anything. This is still that same flower, and I keep watching for like a stem that might come up where you think a flower might be, but I have not seen anything yet. So still watching on this one. Gonna give him a little drink while we're here. And then here is my echinacea, which I love. I planted this from seed 3 years ago and inside, and then transferred to outside. But I just love the colors of these echinacea. They're so vibrant and beautiful. And you can see just tons of buds on there. So there are gonna be lots of color coming into the side garden here. Raspberries in the summer here, we do get them. They do turn red, but the berries are just not as abundant nor as sweet as they are in the fall. So you can see we have some. I pretty much let the girls know they can come out here and pick them anytime they want. There's a good one. Still good, just not as many of them. So I let them come out here and pick them. It keeps them busy, which I like. Oop, there's another one that's probably ready, but I'll leave that for the girls. If you haven't watched before, I have 3 girls. I have a 6-year-old, a 3-year-old, and an 18-month-old. So full house here, but they love to be in the garden, and that keeps them busy. Back here, I have more morning glories. I'm going to give them a drink while we're here. These morning glories, I originally had planted some inside, but they went crazy and started climbing everywhere, and it was too cold to be outside yet. So I had to like toss those and start over. So we started over in a few plots back here. These ones are like a purple color. We've got lots of buds here starting. I think they just are sad and need a little more water. It's pretty hot out here. These ones are purple and pink. And then these ones are called, what did I say? Not UFO, but they're called spaceship or something. Oh no, flying saucer. I knew I'd get it. So those ones are blue and white. We should see some of those here pretty soon as well. Lots of little buds on those. Coming to the inside of the garden, not a ton has changed in here. But I'll show you where we're at. Here's the onions on this side. I had several that I started inside that I started plants and then put them out here to bulb up. You can see that they are, I mean, maybe ping pong ball size. They're not huge. I'm hoping they get bigger, so I just keep watering them. These bigger ones here that you see with the flowers on it, these are from last year, and so those I can't take credit for how big those stalks are or anything. But hoping just to get some decent onions. It's a work in progress. Every year I try something a little bit different and get a little better results. So I'm gonna wait on those. I also sprinkled some seeds in here when I thought things were not looking so hot. So you'll also see some tiny little guys in here, like these ones down here that are starting too. So I've kind of got like bunching onions almost now. This is my sugar pumpkin. I plant this one when I plant the rest of my garden for the most part because I like them to be ready to use in baking. I like mostly pumpkin muffins or pumpkin pie. I have a really great recipe on my channel for the pumpkin muffins with cream cheese filling, like the Starbucks ones. They're amazing. But you'll see lots and lots of male flowers here. The male flowers are the ones like this that have no pumpkin on the back side. But those usually open first, and then we start seeing some female pumpkins, female flowers, sorry, that have the little pumpkin on the back. So like there's one, there's another one, and it's just continuing to grow. So you're gonna see more. There's another one that'll start. So we got lots going on there. I'm really excited for that to be ready. Right next to that is my zucchini. And we've got a few in here that have female flowers on them that are growing. I picked my very first zucchini off of this other plant right next to it just yesterday. But again, you can see even more in there. So I think in about a week, we're gonna be swimming in those. Down this trellis here, it's kind of a long one. It's It's got 5 holes in it. I used to use this for my melons, but now I use it for cucumbers this year. They're starting to get better and get bigger. I just keep training them up the trellis. They're starting to try to grab each other. Let go. But this one down at the end is just a store-bought poinsettia variety, like the big fat slicing ones that you would get at the grocery store. Mostly seeing male flowers on those. I don't see any females on those. This one in the center here, this is the Merlin cucumber. This is one of my favorite cucumbers. You can see lots of little guys starting here and more over here and some on the back side even. These ones only get about 6 or 8 inches long, maybe more so close to the 6, and they are super great for snacking. They have like hardly any seed in the middle. They're so yummy and my husband loves them. So lots of female flowers on that one. And I've probably gotten 5 or 6 already off of it and more to come. So I love that one. If you want to try a new one, try that one. Then down at the end here in these last 2 holes, we have your standard pickling, National Pickling brand. And these ones are erupting with these big male flowers. So lots there. And I did see a couple, oh here's one, little tiny female flowers getting started here. So again, I think in a couple weeks, we're gonna have lots out here to harvest. Here's another one. So I'll make some pickles out of those. At the back of the garden, we have the other pumpkins I planted. This one is a Jack B. Little. I planted a few seeds. Looks like I have like maybe 3 plants back here that came up. And they are doing well. No flowers yet, just really getting started. They've only been in the ground for a couple weeks, 2 weeks I think. This one is a Connecticut field pumpkin. You can see where it's starting to think about some flowers there. This would be like for jack-o'-lanterns. Right next to the pumpkins in the back are our broccoli. Our broccoli, I have harvested all of the main stalks, except for this one, which just really started. This one, you can see we harvested the main stalk, but I like to leave them in the ground because then they come with these nice offshoots, which if nothing else, are great little guys that you can just pick and snack on. And my girls do love that. So most of the broccoli is done. It's just way too hot for them. They bolt. This is one that's bolted. I left it because they are pretty flowers and they are attracting some of these hoverflies. And those are pollinators, so I'm going to leave this one be right where it is. On the other side of the cucumbers, we have the beans. So we have, these ones are a green pole bean called Seychelles. These ones are a purple, what used to be bush bean, but clearly has turned into a pole bean as it cross-pollinated last year, and I saved those seeds. I do have lots of beans inside already, but you can see that the green beans especially are really producing already, and they will just continue to do so. So lots in there. The purple bush beans, well, pole beans now I should say, are giving me lots of flowers, but I don't have a ton of actual beans yet. I have a few, maybe a couple handfuls that I've picked. Here's like an example of one little guy starting here, and a couple more inside here. But we're still waiting on those to kind of fill out. But I've got 2 big tomato cages back here that I use to let my beans trellis up. I'll come out here in a couple days before I'm out of town for the weekend and probably pick them. And what I like to do is you just pick them. Here's an example. You pick them and then I just snip this little end off. And then I'll take those inside and cut them into bite-sized pieces like the ones you'd buy at the store. And then put them on a cookie sheet and let them freeze individually like that. And that allows them to not stick together when I'm trying to take out what I need from the bag. So then I can have one big bag and just kind of pull out a little bit at a time. Oh, there's another purple bean down there. So you can see we're starting to get some. So beans are looking good. I've got 3 celery plants here. Here's one. Here's another, which is actually probably a couple plants all together, starting to fill out. And here's the third. I learned last year that I can freeze them really well, and they actually do very well in stew and in soup, like chicken noodle soup, like my family likes. So that has worked out well for me. I haven't had to buy celery in a while. This is my rosemary plant that I got at the grocery store. I'm just gonna let it grow crazy all summer, and then I'm gonna take it and dry it and save it as herb to use in my cooking. That was a nice find at the grocery store. And then all along the one side here, it goes all the way up the end of my garden. These are all tomatoes here. So we have a lot of different varieties. These ones are some bigger slicer tomatoes that are starting to come on, getting more flowers up towards the top. So we're gonna see more coming. Look at those. But we've got some already starting in here. And then I have a few San Marzanos here. I like those for salsa. These, in this one little tomato cage I have, these are pear tomatoes. And you can tell because of the shape they are. Look like a little pear. And they're snacking tomatoes, really sweet. So I thought those would be great for the girls to be able to have. Then a lot of the other plants up here are these Amish paste. They look a lot like San Marzano in shape, but they are a little bit less water content, and so they are really good for sauces. So that's what I'm planning to use these for, and I'm just showing you a couple that are getting started. You may also notice that I've been pruning my tomato plants. Anything that looks like this is coming off. And then maybe once a week, I'll come out here and I'll find any just extra branches, or suckers is what we would call them, like this. It's coming out, it's leaves, there's no fruit. So that's something I could snip off and just keep the airflow going in here. Especially, you'll notice from the bottom up, I leave at least the bottom foot completely free of those extra pieces so that we keep that dirt splashing up from stopping and keeping our tomato plants healthy. There's another slicer tomato down here on this end. So not quite ready for tomatoes yet, but in the next couple weeks we will be. Next to my tomatoes, I've got peppers all along here. And then they go over and come back as well, even these two tall ones. So we'll look at a couple of those. I mean, just look at the number of buds that are forming on the top of these. This one's got a little guy on it already. These are probably jalapenos. I might have mixed up my my tags at some point. But lots of flowers, lots of places you can see the buds will be starting. A couple little tiny guys going there. This one's got a couple on it. You'll also know I have a lot of rogue tomatoes. So like, here's a tomato that's planted itself next to my ghost pepper. But look at how productive it is. How can I pull that from the ground? We're gonna leave it. The ghost pepper doesn't have any flowers yet, but it's starting to look like it's getting ready to bud, like what you see on these ones. So I think pretty soon we'll see some there. And this one right next to it is called Bicanio. And I'm just now starting to see these tiny little buds. I know it's hard to zoom in on that are forming. Those will turn into like little cherry tomato-like snacking peppers. So looking forward to trying those. Here's a random carrot that planted itself. We're gonna see what happens there too. And another tomato. I should probably come out and trim this guy up because he's got lots of icky leaves, but here's another. Some of these are bell peppers as well. Here's some more bell peppers. So lots of peppers coming along in this area over here. Here's that parsley plant that was from last year that came back from the dead and then decided to flower. So I'm gonna save seeds on that. It's just sort of a huge wicked mess at the moment. Right next to that, I have 1, 2, 3, 4. And they're kind of taken over by this squash plant here. But these are my Brussels sprouts. And in the last video, we had no sprouts farming. And this one we do. So you can see the Brussels sprouts are starting. Oh, look at this one, even is better. It's awesome looking. Look at those Brussels sprouts. And if you haven't grown those before, they do take quite a while. I'd say a solid 120 days. So those are like one of the first things you got to put in and one of the last things that you're going to be able to take out. I bought these pre-started, so I'll hopefully get me a little bit of a jump and hopefully they turn out well. My daughter, one of her favorite things in the garden is the Brussels sprouts right off the stem. So, and then the only other things on this side of the garden we haven't looked at yet I planted some basil over here. I've been snipping off the top so that they don't bolt because it is really hot and humid, but they're such shiny, glossy, nice big leaves. I'm just gonna let these bulk up and then probably turn them into dried herbs or pesto. Right next to it is my cilantro. And the ones with these little tiny stems at the bottom, they're coming up with good cilantro that tastes good, that can be used in cooking. And I'm making some Indian food today, actually, that I'll be using it in. But when it bolts and goes to flower, a couple of things. Hopefully the flowers attract some more hoverflies or others, pollinators. But also it turns into coriander. And I use coriander in my Indian cooking as well. So we're going to see if we can't collect some of that. And then I have a thyme plant that I got at Trader Joe's here. It's probably tripled in size. I absolutely love thyme on like chicken and steak, on meats. So I think I'm just over here smelling my fingers. It smells so good. Here's a couple more carrots that have planted themselves in this extra little spot here, right next to the actual carrot plantings. And the carrots, I've been coming out here every couple of days, just looking to see how big they are. I know that they're not ready yet. I'm aware of that, but you know me, I'm itching to pull a few, and then I'm trying to thin them a bit so that we have room for them to grow. So when I'm pulling them to thin, they're looking about like this. But look at how long that taproot is. That's so good. That means it's planning to grow deeper. And then I just take these little guys inside and give them to Quinn or Sammy. My little girls love them. Here is my plant that my mother-in-law gave me. This is that same, I've never grown a grapevine before, but I'm just trying to let it climb up here by those morning glories. So that's this whole half of the garden. I'm going to step back over. Whoop, the little frog. Say hello. Right in the front when you walk in is my winter squash. I'm just trying to keep them again trained up this trellis so that I don't walk all over them. We're starting to get some blooms down here, so in no time at all we're going to start seeing some fruit production on there. These are honey nut, and I just wanted to call out, some of you had mentioned last year like, oh no, it's powdery mildew. This is actually what the leaf looks like, so it's not infected or anything. That's just normal for these. I am going to show you at the end, I pulled all my garlic, so I'll throw a quick snip of that video in here so you can see how big they were. And then down the middle, this is where we used to have peas that would go up this trellis and over, and then more peas down here. I have now pulled all the peas out because it's too hot and they're just bitter and hard. I've planted beans there, the Seychelles blend. And then in this one here, I planted carrots, golden beets, and red beets, the far end. So you can see some of the carrots that I put in. There's golden beets there. Again, more volunteer tomatoes. There's one here, there's one there, there's one over there. Red beets at the end. And then this is where my spinach was. I pulled all of that out and just recently, 2 days ago, put some more carrots in there. So I'm trying to keep those watered, keep them wet and happy. So we should have a second seeding of beans and a second seeding of carrots and then some beets in here. On the far side, we've got our corn. Corn is not something I'm super great at growing. I've decided that because I've tried growing it about 5 years now, 4 years maybe. And every year I have a little bit better approach, but I've never really gotten the production I've wanted. So if you have tips for growing corn, you let me know. But I do fertilize in the fall. I fertilize while they're growing. I make sure they've got nitrogen. I have tried to keep as many of the weeds out of down by the stems that I can. And I put mulch down there to try to help retain the water. But they're just kind of short. Like this one here is about 5.5 feet tall. But there are some that are just really short. And then they tassel so early. Like, why is this one tasseling? It's so tiny. Anyhow, I'm just starting to see a few silks. Here's one on this plant, and this is probably the best looking one over here on this plant. There's some starting back there. So hopefully we'll start seeing some pollination on those. We'll see. Next to the corn, I have my 2 spots where I usually have my cherry tomatoes. there's just tons and tons and tons and tons of flowers. So we're going to have lots of cherry tomatoes, more than we could ever eat, I'm sure. You can see some are starting to ripen up down here. I need to come through again and maybe trim some of these leaves. Again, some of them are starting to look a little diseased or blight, that I'll have to take care of that, excuse me. And get rid of some of those. But lots of fruit again coming on these that are nice and big too. Look how big those are. Next to that, in this area and right at my feet here, I had potatoes. I dug them last night because I found that they were so compact under the soil that I had used to hill them up with. The soil I used to hill them up with was great, but below it was really compact and the potatoes weren't growing really any bigger. So I pulled them yesterday. I'll throw a few pictures up here while I'm talking through the garden that you can see how big they were. I'd say somewhere around 15 pounds, mostly of a russet potato, but a few reds as well. Over here, these are some parsnips that grew themselves. Again, I'm always happy to accept volunteers. So I've got like 3 or 4 of them that just decided to grow themselves here. I planted them there 2 years ago. These ones randomly decided to grow, so I'm going to let them. And these are my daughters. I call them hers because she picked the seeds from our other plant on the other side of the house and planted them here all by herself. She did everything. They are looking beautiful. I just love them. And they attract pollinators. Look at this guy. He's absolutely covered in pollen. Yes, go find my plants. So that's why they're here. Very far back, we have our watermelon. So this is one of the ones I started inside. This one is, I want to say Dixie Queen. And they're supposed to be the bigger ones. And then right down the middle, I have my cantaloupe. Lots of flowers starting on those, so hopefully we'll get some cantaloupe this year that looks decent. These are all my onions with these flowers on them that grew themselves. I planted here the first year I gardened, and then I never planted onions back here again, but I saved the seeds from them because obviously the seeds worked well because they're growing up in my raised bed. And then here is another crimson sweet, another large but not as big as the Dixie Queen. And I'm just going to let them do their thing over here. So that's the back end of the garden. So I'll give you one final look at just the overall garden that we just went through. Did you notice my little guy down here? My little owl? I thought maybe he'd help keep the birds away because they were enjoying all of my peas all summer. I have harvested about half of the garlic, probably just need to come out and take the rest of it out. It's not getting as big as I would hope it would, so I got to do some more research, but you can see, I mean, it's got a few cloves in there, but they're so tiny. Like I wouldn't replant these cloves because I would get a tiny bulb. But you can see they're just, you know, not very big. This is one of the sadder looking ones. Let's pull one of the bigger ones and see what it looks like. Here's one of the bigger ones right here. Oh, see, look at that. That's what I'm looking for, at least this size. This is German red, and I'm very happy that that's the case because I just ordered online last night 8 more bulbs like this of the German red because I thought it looked like it was doing the best. So this is the German red. And then the one in the back here was the one I thought was looking the next best. And this one is called Great Lakes. So this one looks ready. Let's just pull one up here. Here's a Great Lakes. Pretty decent. I'd say they're comparable in size, but I think the German wins out. And here's what the other ones are looking like wah, wah. So you can see back here, they're quite a bit taller. And then up here, they're kind of smaller. I was also using this one as a gauge to see when they were ready to harvest, because the way that hardneck works is these scapes, which are a hard centerpiece, they come up and they're all curly queued up like you saw in the last video. And when they're ready to flower and go straight up, that's when they're all done. So we can see here that this one is bulbed and starting to put some seeds in there. If you're wondering why wouldn't I just save the seeds and try planting those instead of the cloves of garlic. The reason for that would be because it takes 3 to 4 years for seeds to actually move into a phase where you can get cloves like. Okay, we're just gonna try it. So here's a sad looking one. Yeah, about the size of the clove I put in. Just teensy weensy, and really thin neck. I'm also trying to come up with a better plan for the garlic for next year. But look, see, this one didn't have a super thick neck, but has a decent size, I mean, compared to the rest of them, bulb on it. Another little guy. This one hopefully is bigger because it looks bigger. Yeah, it's a little bigger. It's more like closer to a store size. These were all hardneck varieties I planted in here. Not bad. I can smell the garlic as I'm pulling them out. It smells amazing. I love garlic. So I have a good plan for next year, what I want to do differently already. I've picked the variety that I liked the best, and it looks like that was a good idea because those ones were coming up bigger. And then I also am going to amend the soil a little differently and mulch a little differently. But I think, you know, when you see that there are a few leaves at the bottom that are totally crispified, they're ready to come out. Usually that's in late July here. So I've been saving these last couple because they are the biggest. This is the biggest one that I have right now. So we're gonna pull that one, so cross your fingers. It's one of the bigger ones, I would say. So the one on the left, this is a Great Lakes, and the one on the right here is a German Red. Fairly consistent, I think. So there. I've got about another bunch like this in the house already that are drying. These need to get drying, and then we can get them ready for storage. So there's the great garlic experiment we did this year. Well, thanks as always for watching. I like to give updates. If there are things that you like to see or questions you'd like to ask, throw them in the comments. If you want to see more garden tours, I'll be doing one in maybe about another month. And we'll just continue to show you what we save, and then I'll do some preserving as well. Thanks again. Bye.